Hello ladies and welcome back. And if you're new here, my name is Jax and I have been sharing our 4-year journey through infertility, IVF, adoption, parenting, and now pregnancy. This is my 34-week update where I'm going to be sharing with you all the multitude of things I've tried to help with restless leg syndrome, as well as the results of a very, very good OB appointment, which had a surprise ultrasound in it. So I'm really excited to share what's been going on this week. This is my 34-week update. Like always, I film these at the end of the week, and we will go through the baby update, the mommy update, and then something about my family. This week, baby Kingsley is the size of a quokqa. I don't think I'm pronouncing that right, or about the size of a cantaloupe. He should be weighing in between 5 and 5.5 pounds, but he is entering a period of very rapid growth where he should be putting on about 0.5 pound a week from here on out. As he gets bigger, the amount of amniotic fluid is going to decrease, so he'll have less room to move and wiggle around. This week, though, also marks most of his organ systems being pretty darn functional, which is why babies at 35 weeks have a wonderful survival rate. The only things left that really need a few more weeks to develop all the way are his lungs, and then babies born this early can have a little bit of digestive issues with that being underdeveloped, but the growth that he's experiencing now is much closer to the growth he'll be experiencing outside of the womb as well, which is exciting to be getting into that kind of last final bit. If you've been around for a while, you know that I cannot go past 40 weeks because this is an IVF pregnancy. Any pregnancy at this point, your placenta would start to show signs of age. It's a temporary organ. It's not meant to be there forever. But in IVF pregnancies, for some reason, they've shown that the placenta ages even quicker or wasn't that great of a quality to begin with. So they do not let IVF pregnancies go past 40 weeks because of placental issues with it aging too fast. But that aging process starts to show essentially in the 34th week. On to the mommy update. There's two main things I want to talk about this week. It's restless leg syndrome and my OB appointment. If you caught the last 2 weeks of updates, you know that I was really struggling with restless leg syndrome as well as some anxieties. This week, I hit a point where I just had to address it. And so I took the time I needed during the day to start catching up on sleep a few days in a row so that I could just have some cognitive function. I still, with the exception of last night, was not getting anywhere near a decent amount of sleep, 5 hours at night. So I was taking naps during the day just to function at this point, which is something I've been resisting doing since the first trimester when you're so tired. They're so tired in the first trimester. But other than that, I've been kind of coping, and just catching up on the weekends. And finally, obviously last week was not okay. Not okay. Week 33 was not okay. So I decided to just take the time to get enough sleep so that I could make a plan. Part of that plan was trying different things with restless leg syndrome, and boy, did I try them all to no avail. Last night was the first night that I even vaguely got close to a decent night's sleep, and by decent, I mean like I at least was asleep or up going to the bathroom versus just lying there miserable, which is what I'd been doing the last 2 weeks. What did I try? What finally worked last night? I hate calling one piece of data or one night like working, but here's what happened. I brought this up with my OB because I had been taking magnesium, using magnesium cream, doing Epsom salt baths, all the things you're supposed to do to try to deal with that. I was trying them all, and it was getting worse. I think it helped maybe the first few days, but I think my symptoms have gotten worse. Oh, and heating pads. Heating pads finally did offer some relief. One night they worked. It took a little bit of experimentation. Finally, though, I brought it up at my 34-week appointment with my OB, and she gave me a prescription for essentially a drug that's in like the Benadryl family. I can't remember the exact name of it, and I'd get demonetized if I said it. So, there you go. Essentially, it's just a strong Benadryl. I comboed that with, and they say to take it like right at bedtime, but what I'm finding is I need to take my Benadryl, some Tylenol to help with aches and pains, and that magnesium a good chunk, at least an hour before I actually want to fall asleep. I think just because your gut's so slow when you're pregnant, it takes a while for that all to hit. So taking that all a good hour before I actually wanted to sleep, moving the heating pad from directly touching my legs up a bit so it's just warm, so my legs are just really warm, not necessarily hot, has been really helpful. And really quick, before we move on to the OB appointment and that surprise scan, let's do, first of all, weight check-in. I'm weighing in at 164 pounds, I think, at the end of week 34, which puts me 15 and a half pounds up over my starting weight, which, as you can see on the graph, means we are tracking right on track finally. If you missed my explanation a few videos ago, what we want is that middle to upper end of that red spectrum. That would be a really good healthy weight gain for me for this pregnancy, and I think we're finally kind of edging nearer to that, partially because, oh my gosh, the last 3 days I've been ravenous. It reminds me of like week 27 when I just ate everything in sight, and since I know how fleeting, I think I was able to eat week 27 and 28, and then everything went downhill with eating again. So I'm very much indulging. I'm still good in the weight gain department, and I don't know how long this whole being able to eat thing is gonna last. So I've been eating. It's been great. Probably also helps with my mood that I'm eating again. Let's see. And bump shot. Let's do bump shots while we're at it. Had to move today's bump shots into the bedroom so that the husband's coworkers don't have to hear about it while I'm doing it. I normally do it in the kitchen right next to the office. So welcome to the bedroom. All right, so from the front, and this isn't a maternity shirt. This is just a flowy shirt I happen to have, which is why there's not quite enough fabric there. And then from the side, definitely a quintessential bump happening there. Oh, this lighting isn't great, but we're gonna cope. This is from the front. Definitely have that line coming up and down. And then let's see. Yeah, he's still sideways. Ish. Yeah, so I think he's sideways, which you can tell. Got those bulges. You can really tell over there. Look at how much that like sticks out. Because he's here. His body is here going across. I think more like this is more accurate right now. But that's from the side. So on to the more exciting update and kind of what really set my mood shifting back, really kind of bumped me over the edge of helping with my anxiety. Probably also the meds she gave me to help sleep, right? But this OB appointment was really, really helpful. You've heard me say that I love my OB, and I really, really do, because she gets me. The first thing she did when we got in there was she showed me the breakdown of the growth charts based on the individual measurements they take to make that cumulative growth number. Back in week 32, if you didn't watch, at a growth scan, it showed a dip in the percentile that Kingsley was measuring, but they weren't able to give me kind of any more details because I just met with like a nurse practitioner and she didn't have any more to say on it other than it's fine, and that's not very helpful. So my OB gets me, she showed me the graphs of the breakdown of the 4 measurements, including like head circumference and stomach circumference and some other things in there. And she showed me that for 3 of the 4 measurements, he was tracking along the exact same line he had been, which wasn't necessarily 50 percentile for all of them, but like his head circumference was going up at the same rate. His other 2 were going up at the same rate in their respective percentiles. And it was only stomach circumference that had dipped. So why is this important? Because worrying things would have been if all of them faded and dropped off their respective curves, or if one of them had completely stopped, or if all of them had completely stopped. That also would have been concerning. Instead, what we have is one measurement out of the 4 that dropped down, which could just be a difference in his size, but it also could indicate a measurement error from one scan to the next. And we can't really call it a trend right there until all of like until the 36-week growth scan, right? You need 3 points of data to make a trend. Then she felt around my stomach and got his heartbeat, which was normal. She didn't tell me what it was, but it was normal. But she had to feel around a little bit. And I asked her, I was like, do you think he's still flipped, breech? And she was like, well, based on where his chest is, I'm going to say, I think he's head down, because, where she actually got the heartbeat. But then she started feeling around and her face was just getting more and more puzzled looking, I guess. And she's like, I'm not sure. But then she said, you know what, you're my last patient of the day. Why don't we sneak into the ultrasound room and just look? And which was such a thank you moment for me, like such a special surprise, but also perfect. Like, I don't have to guess. I don't have to think about it. Like, let's just go look. And I think secretly, like, she enjoyed it too. Because the ultrasound techs, I don't know if you've had growth scans and stuff, they're just like, vroom, 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 vroom. Like, they're getting their measurements and they are getting out of there because they have a job to do. But she was just like, looking around because she was having fun, right? Like, she doesn't normally get to do these. So we popped into the ultrasound room and got to look at baby Kingsley, which was really fun because she was first, I guess I should say, we looked at his position, and the reason it was so puzzling is because he was transverse, laying across my belly. So not up and down, across, which made me feel not crazy because I swore that morning, I was like, I swear he's laying sideways. But it's so rare for babies to just chill in that position. I mean, it's not comfy for anyone. So I was like, I gotta be insane. But sure enough, he was laying sideways. So it did make me feel good that I had at least recognized he had shifted from up and down to sideways. But it also explained her puzzled look when she was feeling my belly, because that's the odd position, right? The very minority position for him to be in. So she poked around more though, after we figured out which way he was laying. And we watched him swallow amniotic fluid and, practice swallowing, which was really cute. And he had his foot and his hand up by his head and was laying towards my back. But we just got to, look at toes and fingers and chubby cheeks. And it was, like I said, kind of a really nice turning point. Even though the news isn't good, you don't want your baby transverse. That's still not great. It was just really nice to see him. And coming off, kind of dispelling some of those worries around the marginal cord insertion. It was just a really nice appointment. So what did we talk about after that? While we were poking around, we talked about the fact that he is transverse, and that's still not cool for a vaginal delivery, and we need him to turn. Obviously, he has until my 36-week appointment, which gave him 10 days at the time of that ultrasound. He had 10 days to flip. He's actually still transverse right now. He's been flipping back and forth, which is fun for me to know and feel. But yeah, he's still transverse. He's kind of diagonal almost right now. I can feel his head up there. So he's still transverse. So we talked about an ECV, or an external cephalic version, which is when they give you muscle relaxants and that relax just your uterus, and then they push and they try to turn them, right? We talked about that a little bit, but I talked to her more about the pros and cons and risks and stuff. So I wanted to go over that really quick. So I asked her what factors are working for me and what are working against me for that procedure to be successful, because like we talked about a few weeks ago, it really only has a 60%-ish rate of success. It varies up and down depending on what hospital and honestly what country. Evidently, maybe there's different methodologies that are practiced in different countries, but there seems to be a pretty good gap there of 10 or 15% up or down, depending on which study you're looking at, where it's located. Anyway, she said, one factor that is against me is my anterior placenta, which I didn't know I had. We'd been so concerned about where it was in relation to my cervix that I had never thought to ask whether it was anterior or posterior, and it is anterior, which is the lesser common, the more uncommon positioning. Woo, pregnancy brain. Okay, so normally your placenta sits in the back, but mine is up in the front, which is why I don't feel him a lot in the front, or I don't see his little kicks coming across my stomach, because he's just kicking the placenta. So that made me feel better, that I wasn't crazy, that I hadn't felt him kick a lot in that middle zone. I was like, oh, it's just a black hole of the placenta being there. She says that is a factor against the ECV working. What is in my favor is that I'm a healthy weight. Another factor against me is that this is my first, or I haven't had like a vaginal delivery before. Obviously, if your uterus is, I think, more supple, more stretch, like then they have a lot more success. So that's counting against me. I feel like there was something else. But him being transverse is helpful because that is, halfway there to being where we want. Normally, though, if you want, butt up here, head down here, and you're like this, normally you don't turn like this, though. Normally you somersault forward or backwards, and that's how a baby would naturally flip, but evidently they can work with transverse too. They're like, oh, he's halfway there, might as well just turn him that way. So with that, that happens at 37 weeks because they want them full term in case it starts delivery, because messing with your uterus can make it contract. That happens during fertility treatments too. Different treatments make your uterus contract. Obviously there's no harm in it then because there's no baby in it, but your uterus is a very finicky organ. It does not like being messed with. So sometimes that can happen. Sometimes the baby can, show signs of distress. They monitor for 30 minutes before and quite a bit of time afterwards to make sure. But if they were to stay in like a distressed state, they would, do a C-section. And this procedure does happen in the hospital, right, in our hospital specifically, right next to the OR, just in case that were to happen. There's also a small chance of your water breaking or something like that, and bleeding. But those are very minor risks, and there are no risks to baby of harming him at all. Now, stepping away from the analytical side she gave me, I went and I did some searches on the YouTube and watched a few of these procedures. And whoa, does that vary by how long they take and how painful they are. Some of these women, they get in there and they just kind of go, eh. And then the baby flips and they're like, you're good to go. And they're like, what? And then, yeah, and it was fine. Evidently, sometimes it's just the right pressure. Sometimes it's that drug they give you. If your uterus is contracting, even if you don't know it, that tightness can evidently hinder the baby flipping. And so sometimes just that drug alone, gives the baby the relief it needs to flip. And then some of these women, they are just pressing on. And I'm like, oh, I don't really want that. But I've had a week to process or a few days to process and think about it. And if we get to 36 weeks and he's still transverse or breech, I think we are going to go forward with it, despite the discomfort level for me and despite the risk of them flipping back. It doesn't guarantee you a vaginal delivery. They can flip back. And it can fail. That's the number one bad thing that can happen. It can just straight up fail. Obviously, a 40% failure rate is pretty high. Mainly because then your alternative is a C-section. And my OB is spot on. She kind of honed in. She's like, that means for 6 weeks you can't pick up Evangeline. And I was just like, oh God, that's gonna be a problem. She is 1.5. She wants to be carried and stuff. So, yeah, that is, in 6 weeks of recovery. And all I can think back to is when I was so sick in the first trimester and I wasn't able to do enough around the house or take care of enough things, and how much that hurt my mental state, not to do that. I get a lot of joy from completing a task and doing a thing and being helpful. And being on bed rest or modified bed rest or whatever was so damaging, just mentally, not because of why I was there, but because of all the stuff I couldn't do. And all I can think of is, oh God, with a C-section, it's gonna be the same thing. So that was kind of the tipping point of we'll probably go forward with it should we need it. He has a few more days. I'm filming this right at the end of 34 weeks. You have 1 more week. Get it together. So we talked about that. That would be trying that at 37 weeks. And then also with that 36-week scan, we will get our third data point for that growth curve, true third data point. If there does show any sign of an actual true growth restriction, she says she targets week 38 for delivery of those babies unless something else pops up. So that's what we're looking at. Scan at 36 weeks, an ECV if he doesn't flip. To just like for reference, 97% of babies flip by 36 weeks. So you hear about the off cases like they flipped at 39. It's so small the number that happened. So we'll do that at 37 weeks if he doesn't flip. Delivery at 38 weeks if he is growth restricted, but we don't now. I have a lot less fear about that, so that's great. And otherwise, induction sometime before due date if he doesn't come by then. That was my update, him update. They're getting more and more intertwined, those updates are. On to the family update. The husband is done working overtime, finally. Obviously, him working that crazy amount of hours the last 2 weeks was not okay, but it's not okay for like us as a family going forward for the next month. But I also was like, you should warn your managers that they can't like put you as this like linchpin getting these projects done. You know, in May, you might be gone. So they're all on board, I think, with the next few weeks. We got 5 weeks left. Can we like stop working overtime for that little amount of time? Then after week 35 gets done, everyone is going on baby watch. My parents are on call for watching Evie and Elsa when we go to the hospital. The husband needs to be prepped on where things are for the hospital bag. If you want actual like live updates around that, make sure you follow me on Instagram. I will try to be good about posting on both here and Instagram. Oh, when I do go into labor, I will, if I go into labor or if we start an induction, I will post a little video out of schedule on here just to let you know, but more videos may come out if they're already scheduled. Like if I have my 38-week update already scheduled, it will come out after that I'm in labor thing. So if you don't get confused, if you see that I'm in labor video and then still updates, I will let whatever videos are scheduled to come out still come out while we deal with having a baby. So that's it. Otherwise, for the family update, we're being pretty chill. Trying to be chill, trying to just coast out these last few weeks. As I'm exhausted, he's exhausted. We're all pretty tired. Everyone minus Evangeline is very tired in this house. So we are just trying to coast out the next 5 weeks before our world gets a little topsy-turvy for a while. All right. Thank you as always for spending time with me. And until next time, ladies, keep on fighting. Mwah.